Okay. I think, Tristan, do you think we're good to get going?
Yeah, I think you just get started and people will trickle in. And there's a recording of this as well, so can always
Yes.
catch up.
Okay. Well, thank you everybody for being here. I don't think people will come and go. It's very flexible and it will be recorded. So thank you everyone for joining us. My name is Miss Amelia, and I'm joined by Tristan Wynn from El Moro, and I'm from Top of the World. And we're here for part two of our four-part series for Executive Functioning Essentials. Today, we're going to be talking about focus and memory. And if you joined us last time, you know we talked about self-control and self-regulation. But we'll go ahead and get started. Just some quick housekeeping. Just welcome, come as you are. This is a safe space. We value your confidentiality and just please remain on mute and use the chat as necessary. We do have some help that will be monitoring the chat, so look out for any answers as we go along. And then quickly, I want to shout out our YouTube channel. We have a family resource center YouTube channel at Laguna Beach FRC, and that is where you can find our previous session that I was just referencing, as well as a bunch of other parent seminars and resources that we have recorded. We've done sessions on zones of regulation, we've done digital citizenship. So make sure you're subscribed. And oh my gosh, I feel like a YouTuber right now. Like, comment, and subscribe, put on post notifications so that way you can always stay informed on what we've got going on at the Family Resource Center. And again, welcome. Just a quick introduction. I'm Miss Amelia Miscioni. I'm the school social worker at Top of the World. And I also work one day a week at the Family Resource Center. And I provide mental health support to students and to families. So mental health counseling, attendance support, parent consultations.
And then I'm Mrs. Tristan Wynn. I am the student support specialist over at El Moro. So I am the counterpart of Amelia. So we have the same role at each different elementary site.
Very quickly, you might know and have been familiar with this before. This is our LBUSD learner program areas that we have decided to focus on. Like when a student graduates from LBUSD, these are the qualities that we want them to have as they enter adulthood. We want them to be a constructive collaborator, empowered learner, creative problem solver, empathetic citizen, and effective communicator. And so the theme this year is empathetic citizen. And this is kind of our guideline for any work that we do, whether it's in the classroom or a parent seminar like this. And to turn it back into parents, that we're teaching you today how to be an empathetic parent. So a quick agenda for today, we are going to do a quick Q&A review because some of you have submitted questions that we weren't able to get to in the last session, so we are answering them first thing. We're going to go over our learning objectives, what we hope that you gain from today's session. We'll go into some definitions of what focus and memory looks like and strategies for success. And then if we have some time, it'll be open parent forum, so you guys can ask us questions and share out strategies between each other. Okay, so here's some pending question and answers. Tristan, I'll have you start off.
Alrighty. So our first question that we got was, what are some techniques for kids to deal with worries or anxieties and more on focus, being present in the moment when at school and tackling schoolwork? So for this one, there are two components that I would really focus on. The first being environment setup. I'll just do a super quick overview of this because we will be covering this in our presentation today. But this can look like breaking tasks into smaller steps, or we call that chunking, taking short breaks, timers, and limiting distractions. The next piece would be the emotional regulation. We covered this a lot in our last session that we talked about coping skills such as deep breathing, positive self-talk, and mindfulness, and really focusing on the present moment. A new idea that would work great for anxiety and worry is using something called a worry box or a journal. So that would be encouraging your child to write down or draw their worries for our little ones and then put them away by closing the box or the journal and setting it in a different spot. This helps them to stop thinking about their worry during their schoolwork. We also utilize a worry shredder in my counseling office where I have a mini shredder and it has a little hand crank on it, and students are able to write down their worry and then they get to physically shred it away, which is a really nice and symbolic kind of way to remove yourself from that. And it's always been a hit.
Okay, so I have a question here. It says, what is the best way to support a kid who often needs multiple reminders despite their best efforts to remember in the moment? I would also love tips on parent self-regulation when dealing with frustrations. This is such a valid question. I would say that it's luckily we're here for focus and memory. So you're talking about needing multiple reminders. I hope you leave with some strategies today. But I just want to say give your kids some grace. Um, it's a skill that they're developing currently in the moment, but what I find is most helpful is that it's hard to stick to the program when you don't remember the rules. So just keep in mind that young children have more trouble keeping your directions as a parent in mind. So it is helpful. I know it might seem like a lot of reminders, but it's actually very helpful to remind your child about your expectations or whatever it might be frequently. In fact, there was a study by researchers Barker and Munakata in 2015. Basically, 3-year-olds were asked to complete a very simple task. They could get a prize if they saw a blue triangle, they could get the prize, but if they saw a red circle, they had to wait and they didn't get the prize. And so, what they found was that in order for them to remember the rules, if they were just shown the symbol without any prompting, they often forgot what the rules were. But when they reminded them of the rules, what each symbol meant after every trial or before every trial, they were able to follow the expectations a lot better. So it just means that they need more prompting, they need more reminders. Children are still working on their working memory. And so it's okay to give multiple reminders to remind them of the expectations. And then, as far as parent self regulation, I appreciate you sharing this. It's completely normal. And I hope that now that you've attended our previous session, you've learned some skills. But we talked about how we might have expectations for our kids to have self regulation, but we need to practice it ourselves. So, I want you to think about like what are some things that you can do to calm down and kind of reset, maybe like a self-care plan. And you can reach out to me or Tristan, and we're happy to do this with you. We love talking about self-care. But I would say in the moment, if you're feeling frustrated, it's completely okay to take time to walk away and just express that to your kid. That's good modeling for your kid as well. Just, hey, you know what? I think that we're getting frustrated, or I notice that I'm getting frustrated. Let's get back to this in 5 or in 10 minutes. Like let's do something to cool down. It's okay if you don't know the answer right away, but I think the most important thing is knowing when it's time to step away and cool down rather than solve things and maybe potentially make it worse if we're really frustrated. So I would say don't be afraid to take a pause and reach out to me or Tristan if you need some help with some self-care tools.
Alrighty. So, this one says how to manage kids' iPad time while working from home. So it does often come up to us about the time that kids should be spending on the iPad. So right here we have a link. Last year, both Amelia and myself, some of our technology TOSAs and different players on our sites had a presentation on digital media use for kids. Right here, you'll see we had a link in there. There's lots and lots of resources on all things digital media for elementary level students, and there's a lot of great information on iPad use. So we will also be touching on the limitations of tech and creating routines throughout our presentation today as well. But we highly recommend that you utilize this resource, which will be sent out to you, by the way, after our presentation today.
Okay, love this question. I'm sure all these parents here can relate. This is the golden question. How do I stop my child from being frustrated or mad when they don't get what they want? Oh, goodness. I would say that it's very natural for a kid to get frustrated or mad. So I don't think we can stop that completely, but we can help them through those emotions when it comes to regulation. So my biggest tip that I tell parents is this catchy phrase called engage, don't enrage. So this basically just means validating your child's emotions. I think parents might shy away from validation because they might think that that means agreeing with your child and giving into their needs or their wants when they're having a tantrum. But validating doesn't mean that you're agreeing with them. It's just simply acknowledging how it's affecting them while also staying firm on your rules and not giving in. So when we engage with our children, we're just basically telling them, I can see that you're upset. I see that you're frustrated. I see that this is hard for you. Um, and also, these are my rules and boundaries, but you're simply just coaching them through that emotion and letting them sit in it. But this can be really helpful rather than the typical approach, which I know all of you want to say, because I'm the parent and I said so. But when we do that, we kind of strengthen that power dynamic that we might be feeling with our kids and their need for more control, which might lead to just even more severe frustrations or acting out. So validate their emotions. Say, I understand that you're upset. I can see that you're frustrated right now, but stay firm on your boundaries.
All right. So we have one for signs of ADHD in girls. I'll give like a super quick summary. It definitely appears more subtle than in boys and can be more like daydreaming or being forgetful. It also comes out as anxiety and restlessness, which sometimes can lead to managing emotions. And you'll see it more in the classroom and in peer relationships and social interactions. We have a link right over here. This is for understood.org. This is a really great website resource. It gives lots of great information on various different disabilities and has a lot of wealth of knowledge on a lot of different topics. So we highly recommend you go check this out for a deeper understanding.
Awesome. Okay, so those were some of the Q&As. There's definitely room next time for more Q&A. So keep some questions in your hat and you can drop them in the chat at the very end so we can get back to them next time we see you. But shifting gears now into what we're here to talk about, which is focus and memory. Just take a look at the learning objectives on the screen. There's three things we want you to take away, and that is just understanding some key factors that contribute to focus and memory. We hope that you learn some practical strategies so that you can reduce overwhelm in your household and that you can apply these activities to reinforce their learning and overall the dynamics at home.
Alrighty. So before we get started, we wanted to do a quick review for those new folks joining us. Our series of workshops will focus on executive functioning in elementary level students. Executive functioning in the most simple terms is the skills we need to support learning and completing our daily tasks. It helps us manage our emotions, stay organized, and plan ahead. This is one of the most common themes that we have going on at our elementary campuses, and we often do individual or group sessions to help support kids in building up these skill sets. We start as young as kindergarten and work to make it age level appropriate for their specific milestones. I actually recently did a jungle themed group for first and second graders, and it was a big hit. We utilize lots of learning through play, which really helps it stick with them. All right. So on here, there's a lot of writing on here, but please take a moment just to kind of read through the different components of executive functioning. Today, we'll really be focusing on that top row, and that's the focus, ability to concentrate on a task, attention, sustained concentration over a period of time, working memory, holding the information for a short-term use, and then that self-monitoring piece will also be covering where the students will be evaluating their own experiences and behaviors. Okay. Okay. In our last meeting, we discussed, or sorry, right here, we have a little recap. We talked a lot about self-awareness and self-management in our last session. We covered lots of different strategies. We talked about modeling for calm responses and thinking patterns, the pause strategy that Miss Amelia spoke about with the flashlight, and coping skills, and a few different more. For those of you who made it, we would love if you felt comfortable to go ahead and unmute yourself and share out or share out in the chat. What are some of the strategies you have implemented so far at home that you felt were successful?
If no one chimes in, I would love to hear what that flashlight strategy is.
Oh yeah, Amelia, would you like to go ahead and share?
Sure. And Megan, I'm not sure if you were able to join the last session, but maybe we can send it to you or you can find the session on YouTube. But it was essentially a tool for self-regulation. So it comes from Dan Siegel. He's a child psychologist. And it's basically you use your pause button to pause, your focus flashlight to shine it in on your brain or your chest for your heart. And with the focus flashlight, you're identifying what emotion you feel, like getting an emotion word. And then next, you use your OK monitor. So, am I green? I'm thumbs up. I can keep going. I'm in the yellow. I'm almost not okay. Or am I in the red? I'm completely not okay and I need to calm down. So, the purpose of that tool was for kids to just take more moments to pause during their day so that they can catch the feeling before it escalates maybe into a bigger tantrum or a bigger dysregulation. So, finding more opportunities to pause, focus flashlight, what am I feeling? And am I good to go or maybe not? And if I'm in between or in the red, then that tells me I need to do some sort of self care strategy or take a break. So that's a little bit more about that, but we'll
So
make sure to
great.
send you, I'll keep your name in mind, Megan, so I can send you that information.
Yeah, thank you so much. I wasn't able to make the last one, but I would love to watch the YouTube video.
Oh, sure. That sounds good.
All right. I saw talking about how I'm feeling to model self-awareness. I think that was one of my favorite ones that we have is the modeling process because parents really are their kids' first teachers and they're the ones that they look up to the most. So they like to emulate exactly what you're doing. So when you model it yourself, it really helps them grasp the concept better. All right. Go ahead and move. Okay, so here's our topic of today. The first one that we'll be discussing is the focus piece. This is paying attention to one thing at a time and ignoring your surroundings. A way we like to explain this to kids is through the spotlight analogy in the dark. When it shines, it's illuminating one spot or the thing that you're focusing on. The more focus we have, the more information we're able to absorb and then get things done quicker. And if we don't have full focus, we might miss important information and not fully understand what we're learning. With elementary age students, this skill is always being developed and it's applicable in all areas of life. Of course, in school, they're expected to be sitting in their desk, focusing on the teacher and what the teacher is teaching in the classroom. But this skill is also developed in the real world areas, such as learning to ride a bike. Cooking is another really great example. If you're on the stove and you're cooking an egg, we got to make sure that we're paying focus attention or it overcooks. Or maybe if we're not focusing, then we may burn our hand on a pot or any different scenario, but it applies everywhere. Right. And then the next piece is memory. This is the ability to remember things that you've learned and experienced. A great analogy for this that we like to use is the filing cabinet. Every day that we learn new things, we categorize, we organize, and we file it away into our brains. It's essential in the learning process to retain information as a foundation to understand new concepts. And this becomes more and more important as kids go up in the grades, as the curriculum that's provided is scaffolded, meaning it builds upon last year's core concepts. So it's super important to be retaining the information that we learned in a previous school year. And you see this as young as kindergarten, where they're beginning to learn their letters and their numbers. And this also translates into real life applications, such as them trying to memorize their phone number or an address and understanding what that means. And this skill is also continually being developed in children. So it's not expected to be a huge strength just yet. It's also key in helping to problem solve. And then they have to learn from their past experiences in order to make better future decisions. All right. And so on this little slide, we call it the power of focus and memory synergy or synergizing. But these two skills are really intertwined together. We need to be able to focus to best absorb the information that we have around us. And then we need to utilize the memory to help recall that information forward when we need it. Together, this just makes sure that our kids have reached mastery of a subject and that it goes just beyond that short-term memory and to have and sustain lifelong learning. All right. So we've got through all the little definitions, so hopefully you have a better understanding of what we're going to be discussing today. And now for the exciting part, the strategies. So the first one that we have for you is mindfulness for focus. We discussed mindfulness extensively in the previous session that we have. However, we wanted to include this in today's session as it's a great tool to increase productivity and focus. Before any type of sit down work, such as homework or tasks that really require your full attention, just take a moment to reset. And that means allotting 2 to 5 minutes, nothing too long, of intentional rest and quiet before the task gets started. This really helps to improve concentration, the focus, and just the overall attention span. And it can look different for everybody. It can be a gentle stretch or movement or a short walk. In my experience with the students at El Moro, walking is one of the best strategies. Kids love the fresh air, and it's a great way to reset. And pro tip from a counselor, kids are way more likely to open up when they're walking and talking. It just naturally flows for them to kind of open up and share their thoughts. I highly recommend trying it at home. You may get more information out of them than you would at a usual dinner table conversation. Another one that's really great is music. And you can build this into your routine to have one calm song play as a transition cue. It helps rewire their brains to know that the next task is coming up. I know one of our fourth grade classrooms that we have uses this as kind of a natural timer. It's a cleanup time, so it's the entirety of the song they have to clean up their desks in their area. And once it's over, you need to be packed and ready to go. And so that the music is really that next cue to move on. At home, this can signal you sitting down at the table, ready to focus and ready to start your homework. Another classic one is deep breathing. I know we talk about this all the time, but it really does help to calm down and reset your nervous system. One really cool breathing technique is the focused attention meditation. So it's where you focus all your senses on one object or sensation. A really great example of this is the wind blowing. So if you take a moment, sit outside, closing your eyes and feeling the wind along your face, feeling the wind push your hair. And I know this happens a lot too in Laguna Beach because we're right next to the water, so you do get a lot more wind. And plus, if you live right next to the beach or you're able to easily access it, taking a moment just to sit there and relax. It's really nice. All right. And our next strategy is setting healthy habits. This is incorporating these into your daily life can really enhance your child's cognitive abilities and their overall well-being. The first one being setting predictable routines. They can help them with security, stability, and helping to really reduce the anxiousness they might be feeling. So when you're creating a daily routine, I would like you to think about the morning time and then after school activities to help really build out the consistency and allow the children to know what is happening, when it's happening, and for how long. And this can include your meal times, homework time, after school activities, prep for the next day, meaning laying out your backpack and your clothes, bath time, and it's nice because you can also time it and it'll be a fun activity for your kids to help you actually build it out to see how long it takes for them to brush their teeth and take a bath and then be in bed. And maybe you can do that in 30 minutes, right? And we'll go more in depth into this in our next session. That's where we're going to be covering time management and organization, and the scheduling is a huge part of that. Next is sleep. Sleep is crucial. I can't say it enough, so I'll say it again. Sleep is crucial. School-age kids, 6 to 12, should be getting around 9 to 12 hours of sleep per night, per 24 hours. During sleep, that's when the brain does all of its filing and processing and organizing and repairs itself to be able to function for the next day. And I know we've all been there. Without sufficient sleep, we're not able to function to our full potential and we're not able to focus. I know I require at least 8 hours of sleep a night or I am cranky the next day. So help set your kids up for success for the next day by getting them the proper amount of sleep. So along with the nighttime routines and sleep, we recommend limits on tech. While technology is great, it's beneficial for schoolwork and learning new information. Its overuse can actually really negatively impact attention span and sleep patterns and overstimulate the brain. It is recommended that kids utilize it for less than 2 hours a day, even less if you can or not at all. providing alternative activities for them is really important, such as having art stuff at your house or maybe puzzles as another activity that they can do instead of maybe sitting on the iPad. Tech time can be difficult, but it is because a lot of kids are in a very digital time period, but limiting that would be really helpful. You can also build tech time into your daily schedule, like we kind of talked about with the predictable routines. Just make sure that it's not surrounding the time when your child is supposed to, or close to the time that your child's supposed to be going to bed, because the blue light screens really can negatively impact their sleep. And they may be waking up a little bit more at night or having a hard time getting to bed. And then lastly, is making sure to provide nutrient-rich foods to help support brain development. This means balanced meals with grains, proteins, fruits, veggies, all that good stuff. The key nutrients that you guys should be looking out for is omega-3s, antioxidants, and vitamin B. Those all support brain development. Try to limit those sugary and processed foods as they can lead to crashing, especially in the daytime. We'll see it with our students where they ate 3 cupcakes and a cookie at lunchtime, and then by the time they're back in the classroom, they're dozing off and they're ready to go to bed. So by providing those nutrient-rich foods, we're giving them that opportunity to really be absorbing the information they're learning. Really great foods are like blueberries, carrots and hummus, chicken and rice, apples and peanut butter, eggs, yogurt, all that good stuff. And then lastly, kids should be getting 1.2 liters of water a day, and that's about a 40 ounce of like the Awala cups or those type size, the bigger size, that's 40 ounces.
Awesome. Thank you, Tristan. So I'm going to pick up from here, but truly, sleep and nutrition and routines are so important. I just want to reiterate that. So often in our counseling sessions, if a kiddo is having a hard time focusing or regulating their emotions, often the first question we ask is, are you hungry? Like, what did you have to eat today? Or how much sleep did you get? And more often than not, they're like, you know what? I skipped my lunch or I skipped breakfast. I couldn't sleep last night. I was tossing and turning. We're like, ding, 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 there it is. So really make sure that those routines are solid and you will see the benefits. But moving into strategy number 3, talking about brain warm-ups. So I sent out an email to all teachers at Top of the World, and these were some of the answers that they reported that they do in the classroom to help with focus and memory. So just like you would just like you would stretch before you exercise, brain warm-ups kind of prime the brain for focus and energy. So for focus and memory, my apologies. So first things would be memory games. I often do this in my counseling sessions as well, where I have like maybe a bunch of different emotion cards, but I have 2 copies so that there's a pair, and I flip them all upside down so you can't see anything. And then we have to try to flip 2 at a time, see if it's a match, and then you know get to talk about that emotion, or I'll have cue cards. But that's just a fun way to play memory games. Okay, this one wasn't a match, but I'm going to try to remember where they were and flip them around. But teachers also do this with vocabulary words or maybe symbols about different animals, whatever it might be. But it's just a fun way to test your memory and make it engaging. Puzzles are another great way to train your brain for focus and memory. Puzzles can be what you typically think of, where you're putting the pieces together and maybe starting with the border and trying to make a whole big picture. But there's also lots of types of different puzzles. I would consider a Rubik's Cube also a puzzle, and that's you're learning different patterns, remembering things. That's using a lot of your working memory. There's a bunch of other different puzzles like magnet puzzles, or even simpler ones with for kindergarten or first graders, with just matching different animals into the spots. So puzzles is another great way to engage the brain. Spot the difference is something teachers also reported, where there might be 2 paragraphs and you have to guess, or you have to look and really focus your attention to see what the differences are, or 2 pictures that seem identical, but there's small hidden differences within. And so you really have to focus your attention and remember everything that you saw and try to see the difference. So this could be 2 pictures next to each other like this, and you're referencing each of them. Or I've seen sometimes you show one picture, study it for a few minutes, and then do the other picture. And you're just trying to find the details. Like, okay, in the first picture, the lady had blonde hair, but in the second picture, she has brown hair. So that's the first difference. Or she was holding a telephone, but in the other picture, she was holding a purse, whatever it might be. So that's another fun way to be like, how many differences can you detect? And then lastly is a game of I Spy. This is kind of the riddle game where in a room you pick an object and you say a bunch of hints as to what that object is in order for your child to be looking around the room, listening to the qualities of that object and trying to guess what it might be. So right now I'm looking at like a plant in my office. So I might say, I spy something green. I spy something that's really smooth. I spy something that's tall. And then over time, they're going to be looking and say, oh, I think it's the plant right there. But it's just a fun way to warm up the brain in order to get started on homework. I know homework can sometimes be a battle. So this is a great way to warm it up, just like you would before a big soccer game in order to tackle homework. But it also could be used as a good brain break in the middle of homework to keep your kid engaged and their brain still like tied to what it needs to be doing, but still taking a break from like academic workload, but still doing something that's engaging for their brain. Okay, next I want to talk about homework habits, which I know is probably a big topic that you experience at home or maybe a struggle. So I want to give you some tips for homework habits. These are some things that can help with focus and memory when it comes to remembering the content that they're being assigned to for academics, or also just being able to sit down for a long period of time to get it done. So when building strong homework habits, it helps to focus on a few but simple, powerful routines. Chunking is a great place to start. And chunking means that you're breaking down big assignments into bite-sized steps. So the child or your student only has to focus on one small task at a time. This could look like, instead of the big, overwhelming task of putting together a book report, instead, we're breaking it down into, okay, I need to read the first few chapters, and then maybe the next day I summarize them. Maybe today I'm just highlighting some keywords. The next day I'm getting a poster and the supplies that I need. So that way it's not like, oh my gosh, I have to get all of this done in one sitting, but instead I can check things off as I go, which is, first of all, it reduces overwhelm, and it also increases your motivation for your child and creates these natural wins that just keeps the momentum going and helps build their confidence. It kind of reminds me of like sometimes to-do lists can be really helpful for kids, but otherwise they're like, oh my gosh, I have 20 million things I need to get done. This is actually overwhelming for me. So when we chunk things, I feel like it creates like already did lists where instead of like checking things off, they can add to the list when they've accomplished something. And then they're like, oh, I feel like I've left today doing at least these 5 things. I'm feeling pretty good about it. Another thing that you can use with chunking is timers. Pairing chunking with timers such as 10 to 15 minutes, focused work followed by a short 2 to 3 minute break. These timers can create a sense of structure. They help children understand how long that they can stay engaged, and it makes the workload feel a lot more predictable. I know when I'm in my counseling sessions, I will use a timer just like the one I have on the board where when you wind it up, you can see how much time you have by like a different colored like blob. And this is really helpful because even I, as a counselor, even if I'm just seeing them for 20, 30 minutes, they can get a little antsy. And I'm like, come on, we just need to focus. We just have a few more things to do. So I use the timer because it's really helpful when they say, how much more time are we going to be doing this? Or when can I go back to class? I can reference back to the timer and they can see the light at the end of the tunnel. Okay, I only have 10 more minutes. And then they get their playtime. I think that's what they're most looking forward to is their playtime. But it's just helpful for them to visualize the time going by. And some of those timers too, you can hear the ticking, and that can be a helpful like auditory cue that, again, your time is coming up to an end soon enough, but we just got to focus for this much longer. It's so something that's so small, but it's a visual cue that really helps kids move and progress towards what you want them to do. Environment and transitions. A supportive environment plays a huge role in focus and memory. So I would encourage you to set up a consistent homework spot that is free of noise and distractions and clutter. So even small changes like better lighting or removing toys from the table can really set a child up for success. I know we're busy families and we have a lot of kids or activities that are coming in and out of the house, but it really does help set such a routine when they have a consistent spot that they can do their homework in. And another thing that can help is transitions. So transitioning into work time and transitioning into the environment is equally as important. I know that at the school sites, what I see often, especially when kids are coming in from recess or lunch, maybe the expectation might seem like it's okay, you already had your time to play, it's straight to work time. But what I've noticed is that teachers often use a transition sort of activity in order to close their like playful box and open up their learning box. So they might use a visual timer, like I just talked about, or I know Tristan just talked about it as well, that by the time the timer is done or by the time the song is done playing, then kids know and it's signaling it's time to work. Another thing that could be really, really fun is when I'm in the classroom, I notice that teachers have a bunch of different jingles that they say in class time. So, for example, a teacher might say, name on your paper, and then the kids say, first thing. Or if kids are getting rowdy, they say, waterfall, waterfall, and then the kids say, shh, and then it kind of calms the space. There's a bunch of different other ones that I've seen, and the teachers are so creative. So that's language that's being used in the classroom, and that's a cue that the kids are doing. It's called a call and response. So it could be worth reaching out to your teacher and being like, hey, what type of calls and response do you use in the classroom? Because when you're at home and you're about to do homework or your kid's getting rowdy or they're having a hard time focusing, you can say name on your paper, and then it kind of signals them, okay, first thing, it's time to focus on my task at hand. So just something that might be worth looking into. And then lastly, movement is essential. I see this a lot in the classroom. You've heard the term brain breaks. If you look it up on YouTube, there's a bunch of different educational platforms or kids channels that do brain breaks, but young brains need physical movement to stay alert. So transitions like stretching, standing up to get a drink of water, or just taking a brief lap around the room can help recharge your focus and improve memory. And it also not only makes the homework time smoother, but also teaches children how to manage their own attention in a healthy and sustainable way. So it could, again, be gentle stretches, getting a drink of water, but look up some brain breaks. I know that's something that teachers do a lot as well after they've been lecturing for maybe 30 minutes to an hour, or even if they notice that their kids are a little bit more squirrely than usual, teachers will typically pause and do a movement break in order to just kind of release any of that energy, that energetic energy, so that they can sit and focus a little bit better. But I know homework habits are challenging, so please reach out to me or Tristan anytime if you need some guidance. But structure, I would say, is the most important thing, and a predictable routine. So hopefully with the addition of these 4 new skills, homework time can be less of a struggle. Okay, and then strategy number 5, I think we'll talk about this in every single parent seminar, but when we want to change behavior, we want to make sure we're setting achievable goals and praising their efforts. We want to praise, praise, praise. So the way that we shape what we want to see in our kids, and if we want to strengthen focus and memory, we have to reward our children when we're noticing that they're doing great in this skill. So first things first is just using very specific praise. Instead of just saying, good job, or you're awesome, which of course is a great message to hear, we want to be as specific as possible so they know exactly what we're proud of. So I noticed that you worked for 15 minutes without stopping. I love that you just kept going. Good job. Or I love that you remembered to bring your water bottle home from school. You know, I was worried about it. That's an awesome job. Thank you so much for going to the lost and found and getting it. I'm glad you remembered that. So that's perfect in just letting them know exactly what they did right to increase the likelihood that they're going to do it again. Secondly, do not underestimate the power of stickers, especially scented stickers. The kids go crazy for them. Okay, I bought regular stickers and the kids were excited about them, but they were like, do you have scented stickers? They love it. They go crazy for it. So if you have maybe a chore chart at home or, weekly goals or monthly goals, use some stickers to increase their motivation and to just let them know, again, just like the praise, I see you and you're doing a great job. So it could be as they're doing their homework, like as they're focusing, putting a sticker on top of their homework or on their hand and just giving them a thumbs up. That can go a long way to let them know that I saw you and you're doing a great job. And then lastly, just think of some small immediate rewards for completed focus sessions. Let's say it was a particularly amazing day getting homework done when usually it's been a battle. I want you to have a thought of some things that your kid would already really like so that you can reward them immediately. So parents, I want you in the chat right now, because sometimes we need some inspiration or just to get you thinking. What, if you could write it in the chat, what are some small but immediate rewards that you can think of that would motivate your child? So during homework time or during a moment where they were showing good focus and memory, what is something that you can do to reward them? I'll give you a moment to write that in the chat, but when we talk about praising effort, it's especially important when we're trying to implement something new. So kids need a little bit of buy-in when we're trying to implement some new structure. We just talked about homework tips, and maybe you're trying to implement the timer for the first time and there's a little bit of pushback, or you're starting to be strict about homework only being done at the kitchen table when typically your kid was insistent that they did it in their room. So these are some things that are naturally going to take some time to motivate them and get them accustomed to the new structure. So we especially want to praise during those times when we're first implementing it so that it can be, we need those extrinsic motivators at first to get their buy-in before it becomes intrinsically motivating. Yeah, okay, so I heard Stephanie said some words of encouragement. That is amazing. Kids always tell me like, "Oh, I'm so proud of myself. My mom or my dad said I did a good job today." And like, kids can live for a while off of one good compliment. So don't be shy to heap on the praise. Thank you for sharing, Stephanie. Okay, and moving on to the next slide. So more with setting achievable goals and praising effort. I want you to keep in mind that if you have given your child what feels like a reasonable set of instructions, but they keep getting off track, it's a good sign that they've reached their limits and they've reached their limits of their working memory. So tuning into when and how often your child starts to lose focus will get you a better picture of how much they can handle and their capacity to hold information. So once you know where their limits lie, you'll be able to use that as an effective guide for giving directions. So it's just about like knowing how maybe we have too big of expectations for our kid and realizing, oh my gosh, they don't have the capacity for that. So we always want to match the task difficulty to the ability. And just keep in mind, if it's too hard, it's going to lead to frustration. But if it's too easy, it's going to lead to boredom. So we really want to just tune into what's that middle ground. And another way to strengthen both memory and focus is to teach self-monitoring. This means you're helping kids pause and check in with themselves as they work, or maybe after a night of homework or whatever it might be. You can guide them to reflect with simple questions like, did I stay focused? What helped me focus? What pulled me away from my focus? Over time, this builds that self-awareness and better work habits, and it helps them track their progress on their own. But this is a great tool to implement if you're noticing that your kiddo is protesting some of those new habits that you're trying to hold. So for example, if you're insistent that they do their homework in the kitchen, but they want to do it in the bedroom, then you can reflect with them. Okay, you did it in your bedroom. How was it for you? And if they're able to reflect, like, you know what, I did get distracted by my toys, I wasn't able to get anything done, then that's even more, it's you're able to better create new expectations with them of like, okay, well, this is why I want you to do it in the kitchen. So let's give that a try because it sounds like it sucks that you get distracted. And I know you were kind of disappointed in that. So it just helps you set new expectations that work for the both of you. And then, as we just talked about, we have some, well, we have some take homes for you. We have a mini maze puzzle box. I have one right here. I don't know if you remember these. I used to get these as an award for going to the dentist all the time, but they're like these little puzzle boxes that have magnets in them. It's kind of like a maze. So we're going to gift these one to you. We'll put them in your teacher's box so that they can put it in your child's backpack. And we also are giving you some stickers because we talked about how these can be used for focus and memory. So we want to give you some tools that you can implement at home. So be on the lookout for those in your kid's backpack coming up this week.
And they are scented. Just like Amelia spoke about, scented stickers. All right, you guys. So we have a really quick little pro tip for you, and that's to play off your child's learning styles. And you may have heard of this concept, but we all have our own unique ways of learning and receiving information, and every person's different. Auditory learners, they learn best through listening. So these are your kids who learn best in lecturing and then hearing the teacher talk. They may be the ones that actually love the audible books. I know that I am one of those people. Kinesthetic learners is the next one. They learn best with tactile work and with their hands. Great example of this that we do at I know a lot of our kindergarten teachers suggest this to parents, and that's to try to learn letter formation through different means. So one of them could be going into your bathroom, putting shaving cream on the glass in the shower, and then having them trace the letter and they're tactile using their hands to learn how it's formed. This could also be with sand at the beach. We, again, are very blessed to be here. So it's a great opportunity to go to the beach and then also maybe get some learning done. So these kids also really benefit from role playing, building things, or incorporating movement into their studies. The next one is a visual learner. They process best through images and can benefit from PowerPoints, flashcards, watching videos. This is actually one of the most common styles that people have. And then the last one is reading and writing. They learn best through taking notes, reading textbooks, and then making lists. And your child may be a combination of multiple intelligences, and this is called multimodal. It takes practice learning which one they are, but I promise it's super worth it in the end. And it may also help eliminate those frustrating nights at the table where you feel like you've exhausted all your options. You can always think back to, I'm noticing that what we're doing is actually very visual work when they are auditory, and maybe you can talk it out. All right. And then our last strategy of today, there are several different strategies to help build up your memory. We want students to not just retain and then let go, but to reach mastery for lifelong retention that can be built upon. So the first one we have here is mnemonic devices, and these are acronyms, rhymes, stories to help remember information. The sillier, the better. I'm not sure you may remember this in your own schooling experience, but a good example of this is Roy G. Biv, red, orange, yellow, green, indigo, violet. I'm pretty sure we don't even really call them indigo violet anymore, but that's a really good example. Or my very excited mother just served us 9 pizzas. And this has stuck with me since elementary school. That is the planets. So Mercury, Venus, Earth, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, Pluto. There we go. All right, so those are very, very helpful when you're trying to memorize information. The next one is quick active rehearsals. This turns passive review into active tasks, such as using flashcards, matching games, or quick oral recaps of something. Short bursts of these are really great, such as memorizing math facts. I know that's a big one for a lot of our kids. So just spending 5 quick minutes a day, and this also helps keep the information fresh. The next one we have is elaboration and storytelling. This one is great for all kids as kids are really creative. Have your child explain the concept to you in their own words or through a short story with the important facts in it. The act of teaching somebody else information is super powerful and it shows deep mastery of the subject. A good example of this, having your child tell you about the American Revolution as if it was something that happened at school today. So, a good example, oh my gosh, it was so crazy. So, the colonists were out there protesting and they were saying taxation without representation. And they got so fired up that they threw tea into the harbor. Can you believe it, Mom? And that's like an example of the Boston Tea Party, right? So it's in normal everyday terms, but it helps them process the information and they actually understand and can memorize what happened. Next one is retrieval practice. So asking them to recall information from memory through quizzing. You can have them write it down, or for our little ones, draw it out, what they remember about something, as well to get all the information out of their brain and onto a page. And this is really great for our reading and writing type of learners that we just talked about. Our next one is prompting with cues. It's a powerful way to invoke recognition. While reviewing the information, provide cues such as the first letter or a notable marker instead of giving them the full answer right away, which is kind of our first reaction because you want them to be like, oh no, this is the answer. But doing a cue several times first is usually pretty helpful. And then you can fade this away as the memorization improves. For example, I know our fifth graders, a big thing every single year is the states and capital test. And they do chunk this, but then at the very end, they have a large test where they have to do all the states. So you would say, what is the capital of California? Let them sit in the pause if they don't know the answer. That is their brain actively trying to recall. But if you get to a point where it's kind of been a long time, you can say, okay, it starts with an S. And then if it still doesn't go through, maybe think of another cue, such as in it has the candy title in it. And you're like, oh, Sacramento, there's a mento in it. Okay, I think of the S, and now I'm thinking of the mento piece, and now there's two different connections that you just created to that answer, right? So we're building up that recall. And then the last one is meaningful and relevant info. Personal experiences, again, enhance retention. So tying facts from everyday life into what they're learning. A great example of this that I always like to talk about is math and cooking and baking, right? Especially baking because it's very precise. So take the time, maybe on a Friday night, bake some cookies, but utilize math tools to help with remembering the ingredients. So let's say that you need 3 cups of flour in this. You can say, oh, I need 1 cup of flour and then I need two more. Can you tell me how many cups that is? They're like, oh, three, right? Or if you have a older kid, that's when they're getting into fractions, right? You can do more intense math. Oh, I need 3/4 cups of flour and I also need half a cup of flour. How much is that? And then, well, that right there, you're changing the denominator. And then you're like, oh, wait, it's 5/4 of a cup, meaning it's 1 cup and 1/4. So make that information really meaningful and relevant to everyday life. All right, and our last little pro tip as we kind of close out today, and we did talk about this, but we just really want to drive it home, is use spaced retention, meaning review the material briefly across several different days for different days instead of one long session because that short daily review that we're scaffolding the information on really beats that single long cram session. And I know I'm sure we've all done it in school and high school and college, and you have to learn the hard way. But getting that habit early on is really helpful, especially as they grow older and get into middle school and high school and beyond. All right. Well, I think we have gone very close to our time, so I don't know if we're necessarily going to have time for this open share out. But just keep inside your brain. Maybe we can have a couple people share in the chat as we're kind of closing out. If there are any strategies that you guys use at home, because again, you guys are the experts on your kids, you know them best. What are some of the things you've done at home to help improve their focus and attention? We can just kind of have that going in the chat.
Yes, I'm very curious. I remember like when I was younger, before state testing, they would always have us like study with mints because they said the association would help our focus and memory. Do you remember that? I'm like, there's been
I
some
think they
very
still do that.
interesting stuff about focus and memory.
I know our Dr. Hatchell has a giant bowl of mints in her office,
Yes.
available for
Okay.
anyone who needs them.
Yes, there you
Yeah.
go. Okay, Stephanie says setting a timer for a specific amount of time for work or quiet play and a small reward after, like a treat or screen time. I love that. That is helpful. It creates structure. I know some kids are like, I hate the timer. Like it's so stressful. But if you reframe it as like, it's important to know, kids don't really have a sense of time. And, saying do your homework might for 15 minutes might sound like so much time. But if they're able to see it be just a small chunk of a full hour, they'll be like, okay, I can do this. So that's awesome. Thank you, Stephanie.
Alrighty. If we can go to the next slide really quick. And like we kind of said, sort of the format we had this time where we talked about the questions in the beginning from our last session. If you guys have any questions, please feel free to send them in the chat. You can say them to us as we kind of start to log out today because we want to be respectful of your time. Or you're also definitely welcome to email them to us. On our next little slide here, we have our contact information. So all those questions, please feel free to send them our way, and we'd be happy to talk about them in our next session, which I believe January 14th, yes, January 14th, it should be a Wednesday this time, and that one will be on organization and planning.
Yes, and we will be sharing a copy of this presentation and a link to the recording in just a few days. So if you'd like to reference back to it, it'll be yours once we get everything situated. But thank you everybody for coming. So take your time. If you don't have a question right now, think it over. You have our emails, you have our information, and we look forward to supporting you next time.